Okay, good morning everyone. Welcome to week 5 of PER2202. Yes, we're talking again about athlete development and of course predominantly this week learning to train. This is the second stage of LTAD that we are focusing on, having previously focused on fundamentals. So learning to train is the next stage in what we're looking at and corresponds with the age group of from between 9 to 11, 9 to 12 years of age. All right, and with most things, we'll just go quickly over this today. So we'll click on the shares and learning to. So when we're looking to learning to train in early puberty, specialization, recreational use. So that's one of the things we want to look at. As you can see, 9, 12 or 8 to 11 for our male and females, and starting to develop overall sports skills. We can still look at it. There's still a high amount of deliberate, low amount of deliberate practice. So, but we can look at the play and the practice is all incorporating the skill development of them. So we're looking at investment years or specializing years. So investment years, we would look at them having a high amount of deliberate practice with a low amount of deliberate play, and they're sort of focusing on one sport. So this is when they may start to look at that. Whereas if they're specializing, there's a balance between deliberate play and practice. And they start reducing their involvement. They're still going to cater with a number of sports, but whereas they may play several sports during the winter, they may focus more onto 1 or 2 sports. They might just go one sport in winter and one sport in summer. If they're going to early specialization, then perhaps they're looking at high deliberate practice, low deliberate play, and one sport. At this age group, possibly looking at swimming and tennis as being more of their early specialization in this group. So the physical development, now there's a proportional change still at this stage between bone, muscle, and fat tissue. So they're still growing, they're still developing. Now, strength training before maturation should be central nervous system based and motor coordination improvements. So we're looking at those neural pathways that develops with the brain through repetition of doing it. I always refer back to anyone who has worked in or has trained in a gym that remember the first time you bench pressed on the free weights and that bench is all over. And when we talk about that CNS training or the coordination, if you remember the first time the bar's everywhere, as you start developing very quickly, you become a lot more stable and a lot more coordinated. And that's sort of what we're looking at them to develop. Now you're looking at the growth spurt in the ages at this stage. It's still 12 to 14 for girls and 12 to 15 for boys. So with this learning to train construct, they haven't got to this big growth spurt just yet. They're going into their maximum rate of growth across these ages, those. But their peak height of growth is not just being peaked. Further to their development, they're going to have an increase in the red blood cells. Male hormone, testosterone, starts being produced in the boys. Sex characteristics start to manifest themselves during this period as well. Your menarche or your menstrual cycles start commencing for girls somewhere between the age of 10 to 16. If this is the case, you've got to be aware of the influx this can have on iron levels for girls. So they need to, because remember, if your iron levels drop, then your ability to carry oxygen around the blood will also be compromised. Now, the central nervous system is almost fully developed. So agility, balance, and coordination is fully trainable. So that's what your focus should be on at this stage. In this learning to train, is they're starting to coordination, agility, balance associated with their sporting implications. As their smaller muscles are becoming more developed, their fine motor skills are able to be trained more. And basic skills should be mastered, and we should be able to refine and develop those fine motor movements that are associated. With our female development, as their peak height of velocity, it starts hitting you. This is when they start to see that big growth happen, and then it gradually slows down. Now, this isn't their shrinking, it's the speed of their height growth has changed. So in this area around here, 10 to 11 to 12, we're talking about skill, speed, suppleness, stamina can start to happen, but it's after the age of 12 that we really focus on their speed too, and their strength. This is when it comes into, but at this point, we're still 9 to 12 or 8 to 11 years of age. So skill acquisition at this point becomes the more focus of what training is. Now, if we look at the corresponding graph for the males, you can still see here that it's still 9 to 11. And again, now their peak height velocity doesn't occur till a little bit later. Stamina, speed too, again, that comes into it later. So in this bracket here, again, we focus on the skills, and that's about their central nervous system is developed. The gross motor skills should be accomplished by now. Now their fine motor skills are coming into it and are able to be trained. To focus more on the skill acquisition in this point. Now, mental and cognitive development. Their decision-making through more complex technical training should be introduced. So giving them exposure to how to make a decision. When do you catch and run? When do you kick? When do you pass? What do you do once you pass? So you start bringing on these complex technical decisions. Positional play can start to be introduced to them. You form much emphasis is placed upon self-identity. So again, kids are egos, right? They're Donald Trump's gone crazy. But they're eager to perform and they're eager to perfect their skills. Quite often they want to develop, they want to get better. And if you've ever watched young kids, the self-accomplishment that they demonstrate when they achieve something is quite phenomenal to watch. There's no boasting about it, but you see that, yeah, I did that. Even if it was a one-off event in an actual game, you can actually see that being achieved. But with that, we need to understand that they're going to wish to advance their skills. They're still focusing on them. So we have to give them a greater technical and more complex decision-making. Okay, you've kicked the ball to me. Now where should you go? You've passed the ball to the next player. Now what you should do. So we start bringing in these decision-making skills that will develop throughout the next few years. And these are fairly critical. Emotional development, peer groups. Okay, they're going to play the sport that their friends play. They will be extremely influenced by how their peers respond to them, both on and off the field. At this age, the kids can be brutal in their honesty. And of course, they perhaps start getting friends from the opposite sex. So this becomes a major impact towards them, as all of a sudden they have interests outside of sport. But in saying that, if their peers play that sport, they're going to associate with that sport. And if they build and develop that peer group, then their continuation in the sport is more likely. Now, key performance indicators at this stage, we should look at them still only using their own body weight. Large muscle groups are developed and may want to introduce lifting patterns with bars, but we're still focusing on using their body weight. Start developing short sprinting, acceleration or reaction speed or agility. Major skill learning stage, skill development is a must. So whatever their sport is, they need to start developing this skill ability to control the ball at their feet, move, try and catch, pass, run with the ball. Bowling, cricket, serving, tennis, their stroke perfection in swimming. Whatever their sport is, the skill acquisition needs to be the highest priority in this age group. Quality fundamentals should be developed. Fundamentals, they learn that, the ABCs, the agility, the balance, the coordination, and that sort of thing. So we need to further develop that, take it to the next step. And it's quite important that we continue on with this, that skill they've learned needs to be enhanced to a greater extent. Now, with our 4 C's in coaching, the competence from various sources, information from peer coaches. So the friends will tell them if they're playing well or not. So that's where they get their information, and they need to be aware of that. But as a coach, you also need to be aware of that as well, that quite often children can be very brutal. I know my son happens to be in this age group. He's playing in the under-9s at this stage in soccer. And yes, when one of their players kicked an own goal, excuse me, the entire team turned on this person. Now, it was one of those odd incidences where there was nothing that could happen. The ball ricocheted, hit his leg and bounced into the goals. Yeah, the team was quite hostile towards him. So the coach had to sort of pull them all into line. Hey guys, this happens. Let's move on. They also begin to evaluate themselves and how they compete and compare against others in different contexts. They may focus at this stage, drift towards a sport where they are better at it. But it also means that just because they're good at one sport, they're not necessarily going to transfer over it. So we have to be aware of what their competency is or is not. Connection, positive ties with peers becomes increasingly important. That strong group association that they develop, this is going to aid them in their sport participation. Cohesiveness from family has been found to positively associated with just their behaviour. So in other words, if they've got a strong family network, that will help. Now, we can't really talk about what is the nucleus of the family nucleus more, because more than likely they're going to be from broken families, parents who are divorced, or the add-on family. So, but as long as they get a positive influence from their family and association with their family being part of that sport. Also, as a coach, it becomes a very strong bond that at this point, to get a positive role model from a coach is more likely to ensure their continuation with that sport and their development, as opposed to if they have a bad relationship or a bad experience with their coach, it's more likely to push them away from that sport. So the coach-player relationship is probably getting close to its most critical stage for that longevity of continued physical activity. Now, confidence, of course, self-confidence and worth, again, is critical. Physical appearance, social acceptance is a significant factor that affects them. Sports environments need to foster a culture of acceptance and tolerate negative comments directed towards physical and intolerant. That's bad experience. Social acceptance and intolerate negative comments. Well, that's awesome. Obviously, this isn't an English course, but basically what we want is we want positive reinforcement, not negative comments. So at this stage, that's sleep and mental disintegration. We wish them to move away from it because we want them to be confident, but we don't want their confidence to be at the expense of other children. Character and caring. As shown, experience in sport can promote social behaviour and reduce antisocial behaviour. So it's a good thing to stress the importance of team unity, being a good sport, good winning. So that's the benefits of it, to foster this sort of approach that, yes, that by interacting, working together, we can achieve a common goal, but also that one person, if they fail, then we're there to support them rather than isolating or attacking a person for an error. After all, if you watched the Wallabies on the weekend, you would have seen that errors can be made at all levels. So that's how our 4 C's really do go into it. So we want to create a social context that develops their confidence and confidence levels. Personal growth, not athletic excellence at this stage, but developing a motivation. Demonstrate trust and respect. That's got to be strong points to build. Moral behaviours and opportunities for the development of friendships within the team. Character development, social responsibility. Start setting goals and adopt a moral development to promote personal responsibility. I guess this is the one thing, and that's the true benefit of team sport or any sort of sport. You know, there are a set of rules. If you break the rules, therefore you are held accountable. And that is probably one of the strongest points that children at this age can learn. Player athlete capability, continue to develop the ABCs. Mental preparation, role of practice, perseverance, confidence, concentration. All of these things need to be applied. We can start working speed, power, endurance, fun games, medicine balls. Don't forget skill acquisition, and of course, technical skill development from fundamental skills progressively, refining those. They're at their best opportunity to start developing these skills, and also start bringing an understanding of the tactical side of the game, positional play, and modified and small-sided games. all the benefit, the creation of the athlete towards that sport. Lifestyle, personal things is multi-sports. You want them in a sporting lifestyle, and we want them to play complementary sports. In other words, sports that provide the same sort of skill development or the movement patterns in one sport. If they're doing in multiple sports, it's going to help. Changes which puberty bring, both male and female. Menstrual cycles commencing for females, and both the biological and physiological aspects that can lead to, including such things as iron depletion. Testosterone starts to surge in our young fellas. Yes, and then they get all crazy. Understands the relationships between effort and outcome, and more important, teamwork and interaction skills. Get them to develop. It's something we need to teach and train people how to react. Because remember, all through their early years, they're very self. It's all about them. Their world doesn't evolve outside their arm reach. And so to bring in this change of cooperation and working with others is a skill that needs to be developed and will enhance quite easily. And generally speaking, most kids will adopt to that quite well with the correct environment provided. Now, a simple sample session which we need to look at for these guys is, okay, 3 times per week, participation in another sport 3 times a week. Now, again, this can be both formal and informal. Again, we're going to have looking at 5 to 10 minutes of warm-ups. We'll always include a warm-up, although in all honesty, kids are still, the first thing they do in the morning is running from their bed to somewhere. Combined fitness and technical skill development, then modified and conditioning games, tactics. Completing with a cool down. So yes, we're going to start bringing a fitness, but more importantly, a technical skill component. We're trying to fine tune those skills to enhance their ability to perform the skill requirement for their game or their sport that they've chosen. Our conditioning games, they're going to start bringing in, it's not just a case of chasing the ball or doing this, but actually having some basic tactics and technical constructs associated with the sport, whether it be positional play or movement and how to run supporting play and that sort of components. So we're getting more into a training session that's probably going to lend to how their sport is run over the next 10 to 15 years across the stages. So the first introduction of a true training session as opposed to participating for fun. And that's why we call it learning to train. They're going through the process of how to train to play the sport as opposed to just having fun and games. And there we have for our references. So that's what we're looking at with learning to train and its main components. Again, it's an interesting stage. They're still enjoying it for fun, but the relationship that they have with their coaches and their teammates will set them up for continued participation in sport. Remember, a negative impact at this time could see them drop out of sport. And although it'd be great to develop that elite athlete, it's still also about trying to keep people active for life and the benefits to health and well-being from a physically active life. So again, focusing on the kids' development, team interaction and learning the basic constructs of sport and sport training. Okay. Now again, that's what we sort of need to. I'll be giving you guys a call over the next week. We want to set up what you will be doing for your presentations, particularly I think it's assessment task 3. Well, you have to get in your assessment task 2, which is your training plan. Assessment task 3 will be you delivering your actual training plan. So again, whatever age group you've depicted or identified and written about in your lit review, which was submitted yesterday, you're now designing a training program for that particular athlete for that sport, whatever it is that you've chosen. So what you'll probably require doing is videoing yourself doing a complete training session. Again, if you have a learning to train stage, which is 6 to 9, and you can't get, 9 to 11, and you can't get access to those sorts of athletes, if that's a case of you get friends and you wish to, or a team, and put them through that training as it was 9-year-old. So I don't have any if the characteristics of the people in your video do not match the characteristics of the learning to train, as long as your training session meets the requirements for learning to train. But I'll give you each a call on that to discuss that in more detail and make sure you're clear on that. And so that'll be a video of which you will have to send through to me. Okay, guys, I'll talk to you this week. Keep going, keep working. Again, drop me a line, send me an email if you do need any issues resolved or questions answered. All right, guys, all the best. I'll see you again next week in cyberspace. Until then, keep working hard. All right, guys, bye for now.